On news that the Saudis are fighting Iranian proxies in Yemen, as we are supporting Iranians fighting in Iraq. These skewed and conflicting foreign policy angles making a lot of traders nervous, and likely some folks at CIA headquarters as well. Here now is the former director of the Central Intelligence Agency, James Woolsey. Director, every day we speak. We just had you on a couple of days ago. I said we got to have you back because things just keep getting even crazier than they were before. Now we are supporting with air cover Iranians in Iraq as the Saudis are trying to take out Iranian proxies in Yemen. What do you make of it?
Exactly right. You know, sometimes the enemy of my friend is my friend, but sometimes my enemy and my friend's enemy are everybody's against you. And here is what we have. We have the Iranians coming at us, and the surviving stable countries of the Middle East with their proxies like the Houthis in Yemen and in others in Lebanon and Syria and Iraq. They have them coming at you, and then also ISIS from the Sunni side of the picture, and they're coming at us from a different direction. But even though they're not allied with the Houthis and with the Shia, they're still a very serious problem.
Well,
and
Director,
we are.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but let's just take the worst case scenario, an all-out war between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Are we closer to that than we were before? Is there a possibility of that happening?
It could. I think it's unlikely, but it could. And we have got to, if that happens, we have got to help the Saudis. As much as we have problems with them about their treatment of women, their lack of democracy, a lot of other things, we cannot let Iran control the Persian Gulf and the Eastern Mediterranean. It would be a disaster of titanic proportions.
But that gets to the question of whose side we're on right now. We asked that the other day as far as Israel is concerned. In some ways, we seem closer to Iran than Israel in certain policies. I'm just wondering, in all of what's going on in the Middle East, is there any strategy that we have there at all? Do you notice any kind of continuity in strategy in the Middle East with the U.S. right now?
I can't find any continuity. It's quite the opposite. We seem to be hostile to our friends and allies like Israel, and welcoming to our opponents and adversaries like Iran.
Well, there was just another example of that today. Again, if you could forgive me for interrupting, but we got this news that in fact, the Defense Department a couple of weeks ago declassified a top secret file on Israel's nuclear program. Now, this could be a lot of help to Israel's enemies.
Yes.
Why would we do that?
I don't know, but it was a very bad thing to do. I don't know why that decision would be made.
And it does put Israel in jeopardy, does it not? More so than regular?
Yes, I think it does. We have also an interesting situation in the Bergdahl case here, because they are trading him for they traded him for 5 very senior Taliban terrorist leaders. And that doesn't make any sense unless you operate from the assumption that what they want to do, what the administration wants to do, is clear out Guantanamo so they can close it down. And so they have to stretch and release even people like these 5 senior terrorists that were released in exchange for Bergdahl in order to clear Guantanamo out and have an argument that you don't need Guantanamo anymore. I think this administration often starts from what they call the narrative and works backward to what they're going to do, whereas it ought to be, I think, the other way around. Figure out the right thing to do and then figure out how to sell it.
You know, there's another report today concerning the CIA and the fact that the man who was behind getting bin Laden, the man who was on bin Laden's trail for, I think it was at least 9 years, was fired at the CIA. It's quite a legendary, he wasn't exactly fired, but removed from his position as head of the Counterterrorism Center. And it seemed to be kind of a sloppy operation in which he was removed from that position. Can you tell us about it?
I don't know anything independently about it. It looked as if he wasn't honored in the step down. It also looks as if he was given an opportunity to stay, but at a more junior position and decided not to. If we're not going to capture and interrogate without torture, but nonetheless capture and interrogate prisoners from al-Qaeda and the rest of these groups, then killing them, the leaders, the way the CIA has been doing is really kind of our only out. As it is now, we're kind of treating them like trout, catch and release. And treating terrorists like trout is not a good strategy.
Very quickly, because we have some breaking news, the CIA seems to be suffering from a morale problem right now because of all these hits against it, all of the interference from the administration. Am I correct in assuming so? I remember during the 1970s, there was a church committee investigation that sort of ripped apart the CIA. Morale was bad then. It seems to be just as bad now. Am I wrong?
Maybe it's not quite as bad as it was in the church hearings. We all, as directors, get flack about one thing or another. I got flack for catching a spy. I got some more flack for building an average cost building. Congress can get itself up in a tizzy over all sorts of things. And I don't think they're in a real serious situation with the Congress at this point. I think it's going to work out.
We'll get beyond this, but there is collateral damage along the way. James Woolsey, former director of the CIA. Good to see you, sir. Thank you very much.
Good to be with you.